John Millen's father, Bill, played Highland laddie as he came ashore at Sword Beach on D-Day. He was the personal piper to Lord Lovat, who led a brigade of British commandos.
Dad wore this kilt on D-Day and tried not to get it wet, but that didn't succeed because once he came off the landing craft he was up to his waist in water. The pipes are the pipes he played on D-Day. Every time, even now, you know, it's very emotional to actually see them and see what the pipes went through as well as Dad.
The men were told to get off the beach fast, or they would die there.
The air was full, machine gun fire and mortars, there's shells exploding in the air. There's a couple of tanks on fire, and he's marched up and down playing the bagpipes. And some of the commanders, when they went past him, their faces were really grim. But they saw Dad and they smiled and said, "Oh, well done, Jock, we'll be all right now."
Incredibly, Bill Millen, or the Mad Piper as he became known, survived.
After the war, Dad spoke to some German snipers who were there on the day, and they didn't shoot him. They had him in his sights, but they didn't shoot him because it was bad luck. They considered it bad luck to kill an obvious madman in the battlefield.
Bill Millen was one of 156,000 Allied troops, the majority American, Canadian and British, who crossed the English Channel and landed by air and sea in Normandy on D-Day.
This is where hundreds of landing craft left to make their journey across to Normandy back in June 1944. On the 5th of June, it said that you couldn't see the sea because this was thick with landing craft. And the following day, on the 6th of June, it was completely silent because they were all on their way across to France.
800 landing crafts like this one were built to carry tanks.
They travelled right up onto the beach, and then the bow door, which is at the end, would have come down, and then a tank cruise would have been able to drive them off right off onto the beach into battle.
It was cramped and bumpy on board. Diesel fumes filled the air, the men shared one toilet, and many got seasick.
The conditions were pretty nasty on board. They just wanted to get off when they got there, despite knowing what they were going into when they landed on the beaches.
For D-Day to be successful, the Allies also needed to secure strategic inland positions in Normandy. Penny Howard Bates's father, the legendary Major John Howard, was a British officer who commanded a highly dangerous mission.
This is now Pegasus Bridge, and the landing zone is there. You can see what a small area it was. There were trees at one end, and they had to land in the dark of night at midnight on this little strip of land.
They flew in quietly on gliders to capture 2 bridges. One was later renamed Pegasus Bridge after the shoulder emblem worn by British airborne forces.
There was no firing. We had complete surprise. And that moment I will never forget. And I relive it every time I go back to France now for the anniversaries of our landings.
Major Howard and his men quickly overpowered the Germans.
There was only about 50 at the bridges, so there weren't that many. And they were in command within 15 minutes and sending out the success signal.
That was the success signal that was blown from the bridges to tell the parachutists who dropped after an hour after us that the bridges had been captured intact.
Major Howard then needed to hold the bridges until reinforcements arrived.
They held that, and for 6 hours my father was waiting for the commandos to arrive. He remembers saying to Lord Lovat, about bloody time. But Lovat the aristocrat remembers saying to my father, "Today history is made."
I love his speech on the 5th of June, just before they embarked. He said, "In 100 years' time, your children's children will look back and say, they must have been giants." My father was a giant. I'm sorry, I do want to stop there. Every bloody time. And Lovett said, they look back and say they must have been giants in those days.